The NBA draft is Thursday. Pelicans look like they're in a spot where they're going to make some interesting decisions. I'm here to tell you, no matter which route they go, why they just simply need to pick a side. We'll talk about what that means. Let's get into it.
You must know that first. Can't nothing and nobody fade what we trying to do and what we about to do. Second thing is, we got this game on our level. You understand what I'm saying?
Welcome to another episode of In Space. I am your happy and humble host, Chris Connor. Appreciate you guys as always supporting the show. Shout out to our good people here at DraftKings Sportsbook. Please, if you have not already signed up, do us a favor and plug in that promo code BOOT for our audio listeners. That's BOOT. Join DraftKings Sportsbook. You're gonna get free bets. You know, there's all different types of things. Be sure to gamble, use your money responsibly. Our good people at Birdsall Law Firm. Shout out to our guys. If you need legal representation, they're the ones that we use, and as well as the good people at New York Life. Now, let's get into the show. So, you guys have by now have heard all the different rumors and and different conversations surrounding the Pelicans and what's going to happen with this team on Thursday. And myself, I mean, today has been one of the more interesting days for me in regards to being around folks that know what's happening with this team and have bigger sources than I do. And the only thing I can tell you is that it's interesting, and it's only Monday. And around this time, we talked about this during the trade deadline. You hear so much stuff, so much smoke, so much posturing. It's hard to know what's real and what's not. But all I know is today felt really real. But there's a lot of time between now and then for things to change. And that leads me to yesterday. Bradley Beal was traded from Washington to the Phoenix Suns. And I'm not here to talk about what that means for the Western Conference and so on and so forth. That interesting deal happened very quickly, and that whole situation and the parties that were involved is a topic in itself. But the idea of this show came from that trade because when you look at the compensation and what Washington got in return, it just makes you realize that no matter how good you think a player is, no matter how accomplished they are, if an organization is too slow, or if an organization does, in Bradley's case that it was a no trade clause, but if an organization waits even a step too late, a year, a couple months too late, who knows what they can get. It's not like Bradley Beal's a 33, 34-year-old player. You can argue where he fits in regards to top 20, top 30 players, how good you think he is. But I don't think anybody should disagree. No trade clause or not, he was worth more than what the Wizards got back in return. I don't think that's a question. When you look at the Wizards and where they've been the past few years, strictly, specifically towards the end of the John Wall era, they've been they haven't been very, very good, very, very competitive consistently. And, one would think when you sign Bradley Beal to the type of deal in which you did, and you have his attention and his commitment for whatever reasons, whether you believe it's about money or not, he really wanted to believe in Washington. Shout out to Dame in Portland. You got to find a way to commit. And when I say commit, you have to go all in. I would think so. DC is a good market for for sports and basketball. Those the Wizards franchise has been around for a very long time. Dating back to the Bullet days and so on and so forth. Those guys and girls want a winner as well. And when you commit the type of money that you put in a Bradley Beal, you can't be in the middle and trying to bring in rookies and continue and roster turnaround. And no, you kind of got to be all in. Or if not, what's the point of having Bradley Beal at the number that they committed to him? I think I read he had a $57 million player option coming up. That's crazy. Now, I'm not a Washington Wizards expert, so maybe someone can tell me, here's why they couldn't go all in, or they tried this and that. That's fine. But it does serve as a cautionary tale, at least in some respects to me, because I think about the Pelicans and I say, well, you know, did the Wizards wait too late to trade Bradley Beal? Was it right on time? Where did they fail? Where did they mess up to where they were in this kind of situation where they basically handed Brad away? And if you're the Pelicans, how do you avoid being in that kind of situation? Now, I'm not saying that the Pelicans have anybody that is going to fall in that category, but it's interesting because it just falls down to, or it comes down to, no matter what situation you're in as a business, as a team, you got to pick a side. You can't be trying to, and this is just my opinion, I don't think you can be trying to rebuild, right, with a bunch of young talent and compete for playoff series and, you know, late playoff runs, championships. I don't think you can do both. You have to pick one or the other. You get caught in the middle, that doesn't work for anybody. And I think the Pelicans, for a lot of their time in New Orleans, have been kind of like in the middle. They've had periods where they tried to rebuild, but it's a reason there hasn't been a bunch of young teams for long periods. It just hasn't, you know. The Anthony Davis era went from, this is a weird kind of rebuild. You know, we have some young talent, and no, we're competing to try to make the playoffs. Zion Williamson era, the day one was, we're competing to try to make the playoffs, not trading Drew Holiday, bringing back Alvin Gentry, bringing in JJ Redick, bringing in Derek Favors and company. Like, you know what I'm saying? It hasn't been, not really since the early CP3 days, you know, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but from my memory, not since the early Chris Paul days, where you saw a few years of, you know, young talent trying to figure things out before they went ahead and brought in veterans and said, all right, now we're starting to slowly, you know, there seemed to be some kind of plan in place. And that's all I'm saying. The Pelicans have to have a plan, because the conversation on social media has been all over the place about what's going to happen with Zion. If you should trade Zion, if you should trade Brandon, if you should keep them both together for another year and see what happens and continue to build around the edges. I don't care what they do. I'm going to be here. I don't care what they do. Doesn't matter to me because I can't control it. I may have a few preferences, but it doesn't, the end of the day, if they go and trade for Scoot Henderson, as long as there's a plan behind it, I'm with it. What did you learn from the failures with Zion Williamson and some of your young talents in your draft and the young players that you drafted in the David Griffin era in this regime? What'd you learn that you can apply to another who some would call a generational talent, Scoot Henderson, who should be a really good player right away and will have a brand in a guards league? With that kind of mentality, what did you learn to where you won't make those same mistakes? Because no relationship is just one-sided. I don't care how you feel about Zion. No relationship is one-sided. There were things that the Pelicans should have, could have, can look back at and say, man, we should have did that better. So what'd you learn? If Brandon's the one that's gone and Zion stays, how do you commit to Scoot and Zion at the same time to make sure how do you help build that relationship? What didn't you do the first time? What's going to change with these two that didn't work with Brandon and Zion? Or do you feel like it's just up to the players? I have a lot of questions. How do you build around that kind of team, and how long does it take? And if you move one of either Brandon or Zion, what does it say to the rest of the guys in the organization? What statement are you giving moving forward? Is it business? Is it personal? Is it emotion? Are you picking one guy over the other because you feel like that individual is a face? That's the one you want to put on all of your promos and market the most? Or someone who you feel like has your locker room? Like, what's the ultimate goal? And then how do you build from there? Because I think there's been a lot of over time with this regime, and the Pelicans are alone in this, kind of just going through motions, figuring out as you go, figuring out on the fly. You have a chance right now, no matter which route you go. And whether it's a smart move or not, whether it makes the most sense business-wise, whether it's easy for fans to buy in to going forward, you have the chance to kind of draw your line in the sand. If you keep Brandon and Zion together and you're going for another year with some of these veterans you have on this team, how will you retool the roster? How will you add more modern pieces from shooting to rim protection to versatility that this team needs to match the thoughts of depth that we had last year? You know, how do you do that? And how do you continue in that process to build with the younger talents that you had brought in from previous times, from Trey to Herb to Dyson, if Kyra comes back, Jack, so on and so forth? Because the question gets even more murky again if you bring in Scoop, whether Zion or Brandon is traded for them, because who comes with Scoop? What if it's Sharp? What if it's Simons? What if you bring in Mark Williams? You just drafted Dyson Daniels number 8 last year. You gotta, you know, if he's not involved in one of these deals, like this organization, it's important for them to pick a side because you have to know that from player development, you have to know as a consumer, as a supporter, as someone who covers the team, it helps when you know what the hell you're watching, when you have an idea of what the plan is, especially if you want people to buy in. Last year, you knew what that was about. You knew what they were running back. This year, right now, you don't know. And maybe you'll know very soon. Have a feeling by Thursday, you'll get the idea. But no matter which way they go, I think it's time for the vision to be 100% clear, and they can't be caught in the middle. You either tearing it down or doing a soft reset and saying, all right, this is our guy, and this is how we're, you know, whether people like it or not, we're going all in on this individual, we're repairing it on his shoulders, or we're running it back with this group for another year, and we'll see what happens, and we'll see what we have to do financially after this year. We're going to add a new center. We're going to add this guy. We're going to move some of these young guys for that guy, whatever. We're competing to finish off what we think before Zion's injury could have been a very special season at the top or in the first 1, 2, 3, 4 in the Western Conference, and maybe finding ourselves competing for round advancement in the playoffs. I don't care which route they go. Just pick a side, because in business, you can't be caught here. You could be called aggressive. You could be called way conservative, you know, or you know, kind of, you know what I mean? But you can't be here. Can't be in the middle. Can't be in no man's land. You can't be in purgatory. It's not going to work. More times than not, it fails. I'm very curious what they do. I'm curious what you guys think they should do, and what some of these deals look like. Every day there's different stories, and you know your feelings and emotions change about what they might do. Whether it's going to be a big move or just a move around the edges. Last week didn't feel like they would do anything at all. This week it feels like they may do something. But Portland or Charlotte, which are going to be the teams that that are involved, they also have to say yes to whatever compensation the Pelicans want in return to garner one of those picks. Because as people have said enough, number 2 and number 3 draft picks don't get traded often. And when a guy like Scoot Henderson is available, they shouldn't. They shouldn't. From the things that I've heard, watching his game, his age and the position that he's at as a guard in his league. So, but I'm curious what you guys think. Get in the comments as always. I appreciate y'all. I'll chop it up there with y'all. Let me know what y'all think. What should they do? Which side should they pick? Should they commit? Are they, committing in a way to Zion and, and the Scoop and Trey future? Or is it going to be Brandon and Scoop and, Trey and Herb future? Or is it going to be another year of Brandon, Zion, and CJ and seeing how many games you can get out of these guys, which for some people, some would tell you that's a big leap of faith from what they've shown in the amount of games that they've been able to play together. Appreciate y'all as always. Yeah, man. I'll be in the city Thursday doing a live show at the Rusty Nail. I assume Booker Media will be putting it out at some point, putting some promo out, but doing a live show. So y'all pull up, man. Come support the squad. I think some of us will be there. I don't know how many from Boo Crew, Propels Talk, some others. Have a few drinks, have some food. And let's see how this draft unfolds and what the Pelicans do. I'm going to be here regardless, but it should be a very interesting few days. You were in space.